Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm doing my book review on A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum, and I gave this book a 5 out of 5. Before I get into my full book review, I want to do a Booktuber Shoutout. Today's Booktuber Shoutout is to Fandania Silverscribe. She just recently hit 100 subscribers, and she does a mix of booktube tags, to-be reads, and wrap-ups. So I'll link her channel down below. And as always, I will appreciate it if you like my videos. Please hit the subscribe button. I'll always appreciate if you give me a thumbs up. And if you read this book, A Woman Is No Man, or have any recommendations for me, please leave a comment down below. It was really cool to read about Etaf's life because I think a lot of her life has inspired this book, A Woman Is No Man. So Etaf herself, she was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York City. However, her parents and her grandparents were living in refugee camps in Palestine before immigrating to the US. Similar to one of the main protagonists in the story, Etaf was also in an arranged marriage at the age of 19, and she gave birth to a son within 2 years. However, she was able to pursue an education at university and a career as well after. One of the reasons that Etaf was inspired to pursue education was because her grandmother had a very traditional mindset saying that you can't do it because you're not a man. So Etaf has very aspiringly pursued a Bachelor of Arts in English and Literature, a Bachelor of Science in Philosophy, and a Master of Arts in American and British Literature and Philosophy. So great job, Etaf. It's very inspiring that you broke these traditional expectations of you. A Woman Is No Man was published in 2019 and is Etaf's debut novel. She is slated to have written her second book in 2021. However, it has yet to be published yet, so I'm really anticipating when it is published. And I would call this book in the genre of fiction, a bit of culture, about history, and definitely about the Palestinian diaspora. A quick summary of this book is we follow a multi-generational family where they live in Palestine and mostly America. And we follow lives of 3 different women, or actually several women, who have very different upbringings within the Palestinian culture and their expectations, and if they're able to break that cycle. This book, honestly, for me, was heartbreak after heartbreak, and I just couldn't stop. And I just think it's a really important read to learn about a different culture. And for me personally, I am of immigrant parents, but I was born in Canada, and even though it wasn't as extreme, there are lots of parallels I could see that apply to my life and upbringing. The story starts with a young Palestinian woman who just turned of age, and she gets married to a Palestinian family who has immigrated to America, and she goes to America. She has hopes that moving to America, she will have more freedom, but she finds that America is its own little prison because she cannot leave the house, she doesn't have her own sense of community, and there's lots of expectations of her from her mother-in-law. And she also has the expectation to give the family a son, but she gives birth to a daughter, a second daughter, a third daughter, a fourth daughter. So here we can see the main character's struggle and the pressure and the duty she has to fulfill. And then from here we see her story, Isra or Ira, and then also her mother-in-law's perspective, Farida, her daughter's perspective, Dea, and also her sister-in-law's perspective, Sarah. So it's very interesting to see all these different women's perspective of what it means to be a woman, and how being a woman is not equal to being a man in their culture and their society. In addition to the women, we also come to meet the men of the family, the husband Adam, the grandpa, or I guess the father-in-law Khalid, and also the brother-in-laws. And even though this book is about the struggles of being a woman in this culture and society, the author does a really good job painting the men in an empathetic light, because we see that these men are inherently evil, and we see that they're victims of being a cycle as well. And everyone in the book has the power to break the cycle, but a lot of them choose or feel like they cannot break the cycle. So this book is very interesting because it made me have a lot of empathy for everyone that is affected by this cycle of women not being treated fairly. There are so many common themes you can dissect in this book. I'm just going to share ones that kind of resonate with me. So the first one is the idea of belonging versus freedom. So one thing that a lot of women in this book struggle with is they want to belong in their community, but belonging in this community means they have to sacrifice some freedom. So is it worth to get your freedom and then also to not be in part of that community? So that was very interesting. So one quote I want to share at page 38 was Dea felt alone in the end no matter how many books she read, no matter how many tales she told herself. all her life she searched for a story to help her understand who she was and where she belonged. So I really like that quote because I think that is a universal human feeling that we all can relate to. We all want to belong somewhere, we all deserve to belong somewhere, but it's a matter of finding that because we're not all fortunate enough to experience it or be given it. In addition to the sense of belonging versus freedom, we come to meet Isra, who immigrated from Palestine to America, and she and her family really talk about the emphasis of even though they left their country, they need to preserve their culture in America and they shouldn't assimilate, which I thought was really interesting because I think that's like a debate that's very timeless. Like when you immigrate to a country, do you want to assimilate to that culture? But it's also very important to keep your culture too, so you don't lose your roots. So I'm not really sure where I stand on that because that's something that I really struggle with as well. So if you've experienced that, I'm very curious what your opinion is. Another common theme I noticed for the book, which I can't really relate to, is the idea of is it better to die in your own country where it's war torn like Palestine, or is it better to leave your country to save yourself and go to any country like America? And I never really have that pride in terms of being a Canadian. Like I think if Canada went to war, if my home was in danger, I wouldn't stay and fight. I would probably try to flee. So it's something that was very interesting. Just thinking about refugees and how, like, us in Canada, do we have a responsibility to help these people? Because at the end of the day, we're on Earth, and why do we care about these arbitrary borders? So that was an interesting theme that was like prevalent throughout the book, and seeing how all the characters dealt with that internal struggle of having this guilt of leaving their country and not really being able to thrive in their new country. The other common theme that I noticed in this book is the idea of giving birth to a girl, and when a mother does, they feel like they fail not just their family but also their daughter, because they know that if their daughter grows up in that culture, that they will also be subjected to the things that the mother went through and all the pressures and the duty that they had to be obligated to. So I guess the theme is that, like, the importance of having a son or a daughter, is it relevant, is it not relevant? What do you guys think? The other theme I noticed is the title is A Woman Is No Man. However, it talks a lot about love, not just the love in romantic love and arranged marriage, but also love with your family, your mom, dad, and also love with your siblings. And I think the most important theme that I learned in this book is the importance of self-love and putting yourself first. Because, if you can't take care of yourself, how are you expected to take care of someone else? So, things I didn't like about this book. To be honest, this book, because it's a 5 out of 5 for me, there's not many things I would change about the book. But if I had to give it a critique, the only critique I would give it is that I felt like there were so many characters, but the book is really short. And I felt like some characters didn't need to be there, and I'd be fine if we had less characters and more time with each character. So either less characters, or I wish the book was longer, maybe having like a saga of books, because I could just read about all these women's lives in more and more and more details, to be honest. Things I enjoyed about the book. So the number one thing was it really opened my perspectives. One thing that Etaf does a really good job of is not just sharing the oppression that these women face, but also give a lot of empathy to the men in this culture, just because a lot of these men were a victim of their upbringing, and I don't believe a lot of them were inherently evil, but it's just the tools they were given with on how to react to their situation. And it really made me think how people who seem cruel, the reason why they are the way they are can be traced to something that made them that way. And it really opened my eyes on everyone has the power to break their cycle. So yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. Other reason I really enjoyed the book was, I kind of mentioned earlier, is it made me reflect about my relationship with my mother and my grandmother. Sometimes mean things can be said, but it's never from a place of evil or harm. It may just come up that way because it's coming from a place of worry, concern, and protection. And that's just how they were raised. So it really made me think about my relationships a lot with my family. On Goodreads, this book got an average of 4.26 out of 5, which is very high, and it's been out for a few years, so I think the reviews are very accurate. I do want to share that the author herself wrote a 5 out of 5 star review, and her comment was, "I'd like to thank everyone who's taken the time to read, regardless of whether you loved the book or hated it. Thank you so much for reading and sharing your thoughts here." So I was really surprised when I saw that, just because of the high rating I saw it. But as I scrolled through the comments, I see that this book is actually very divisive. So some people didn't like it because they thought the subject matter, 5 out of 5, women oppression, that kind of stuff. but the delivery was a 1 star for a lot of people. A lot of people mentioned that she mentioned that women were oppressed way too often, and it was almost like thrown into your face over and over again. Some people also thought this book is more suited for a young adults category, and it's not very realistic to what happens in these complex families. So those were the lower reviews. Some really good reviews, I don't think I need to really share because I've already kind of raved about it, is they loved it so much because it touches on really tough topics, and the author does a really good way of sharing each character's struggle and giving readers a lot of empathy for all different characters. Why I think you should read this book, I believe it will be a really good book to open your perspectives and learn more about the immigrants in America, or at least one aspect of it. And I think if you're someone who's ever experienced parents or family members that were a bit too controlling, or just having that like tension with your parents, I think this book may open that perspective too, just to see why the grandma was the way she was, why the mother was the way she was. And I just really enjoyed the book, so I think this is a 5 out of star must read. One of my favorite things I like to ask people when they read a book is how it made them feel, because if you ask me tomorrow, well, maybe not tomorrow, but a week, a month, a year from now, I won't remember exactly the characters or the plot, but I'll always remember how a book made me feel. So A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum, this book made me feel very heartbroken. Just so heartbroken that, there's no justice in life all the time, and some people only suffer their whole lives and are born into a life of suffering, and it just made me so sad. But I think that's why this book is important to read, just because not everyone has a great life, and it's important that these stories get shared. That is my book review for A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum. If you read this book, I would love to hear your comments down below. And if you want to join me for my next book review, I'm currently reading Leave the World Behind by Rumaan. I'm not really sure what the genre is. I actually picked this book based off the cover at the library. I didn't even read the summary of the book, but so far it's about a family who goes to a Airbnb for the summer, and then this couple who are the owners of the Airbnb come up one night and said that there is a blackout in all of the eastern coast of America. So it sounds like it may be a thriller or a mystery, not really sure yet, but that's where I stopped the book. So if you want to join me, I will see you guys next time, and thank you for watching. Bye!